happy within oneself is prasannata. Prasad. What is prasada? Prasada, grace is that which makes you happy within yourself. Not external happiness, but internal happiness. Once we realize this importance of this grace, then what happens? All the dukkhas will go. Welcome back to the study of the Bhagavad Gita. We concluded the 62nd and 63rd verse. In the 62nd and the 63rd verse of the second chapter of the Gita, Sri Krishna very dramatically describes how downfall occurs in our life, how any sadhaka, any spiritual aspirant, or leave spiritual aspirant, any human being for that matter, goes to the downfall. It all begins with having harping upon the objects of the senses. You get something, enjoy it, and then forget about it and do not give too much of importance to it. But just harping upon the happiness or the misery of the objects that we have got, it is that which starts taking us down the road, as it were, down the slope, as it were. Therefore, Sri Krishna warns us and says that one must exercise care from the beginning itself. Dhyayan, that is before dhyana, that means before meditating upon those things, be very careful. From the beginning itself, beginning of our life itself, we should start taking extreme care. So, all the great saints and sages, they harp upon this one thing, that spiritual life must start when one is young. It must start when one is young. It is then that one acquires the tools, one acquires the wherewithal to face the trials and tribulations of life in a samatva, in a same-sighted manner. A few years ago, one of our devotees here in Brisbane, Somji, he told me a story about a young man who was once brought in front of the judge here in some court in northern Queensland, I believe. So he was brought in front of the court, and this young man was charged with crimes, several crimes. One was murder, and so he was charged. And then I think the judge was he was still young. He was say 24 or 25. So he told the young boy, well, do you have, before we take you inside the prison, do you have anything to say? Do you have? He said, yes. I want to have a chat with my mother. With my father. So the father and both of them came in front, father and mother. And when he came, instead of hugging his father or saying anything to him, he went and gave a tight slap to his father. So everybody was stunned at that, said, how is it? And then the court, then he told his father, when I was very young, you did not teach me the way that I should live. You just let me do whatever I wanted. You gave me whatever I asked for. And whenever I was even doing something wrong, you justified my actions. At that time, I was very happy, of course, at that time I was very happy that you supported me. But now I realize that if you had stopped me from doing what I was doing when I was young, I would not have landed in this court today. That is why this slap to you for. I mean, it may sound funny or it may also sound a bit ironical, but That is the truth. One must start one's teachings when one is quite young. That is why Swami Vivekananda used to always stress this fact that the spiritual life, in matters of the spiritual life, must be led while one is young. One must be taught how to lead this spiritual life while one is young. That is the greatest gift that a parent can give. So in the fear that the child may not like it or might reject it, some parents do not teach that. Unfortunately, even amongst Hindus, this great dilemma is there. Said, oh, they will learn Bhagavad Gita. I myself know one old lady coming and telling me, oh, you see, my grandson has started reading the Bhagavad Gita. I said, that's very good. I said, no. Bhagavad Gita is for those who are very old. He should not start reading the Bhagavad Gita very young. This is an old lady saying this. So I said, no, he is right. He should start now so that he can obtain the tools and tackles to run his life or to manage his life in a proper manner. So spiritual life must start while one is very young. Therefore, one must exercise care from the very beginning before we involve or by the time we involve ourselves with the world. So, Sri Krishna here, he says, Tu Atmavashi. Take the next one. Smriti Brahmshat Buddhi Nashat Pranashyati. In the next verse, Sri Krishna talks about the disciplined mind of a person. Ragadvesha viyuktaistu vishayan indriyaischaran atmavashyair vidheyatma prasadamadigaccati. Ragadvesha viyuktaistu. But on the other hand, that means in the past verses, he said that a person can have a total downfall by involvement or attachment to the world of the senses. But here he says, but, he uses the word tu, that means but, to differentiate that with it. But a person, on the other hand, if a person is disciplined, Vidheya Atma, one with a disciplined mind, a person with a disciplined mind. Vishayan indragadvesha viyuktaistu. That means, what kind of a discipline is it? The discipline which is devoid of attachment and aversion. This is a very important point that we all need to note. Aversion or escapism is as bad as deep involvement and complete attachment. Both of these are wrong. Aversion is also. So that is why Buddha came up with this wonderful philosophy of the Madhyapanta, the middle path. Middle path is good. No extremes. Not the extremes of the body, not the extremes of the mind also. But you follow the middle path. And Sri Krishna speaks about it here in this verse. Ragat dvesha viyuktaistu vishayan indriyaihi charan atma vashyaihi vidhe atma vashyaihi. How do you get rid of this attachment and aversion? Atma vashyaihi. Raise yourself to the level of the Atman. Atma vashyaihi. The other meaning that is given is having control over one's senses. Atman here is used in both these terms. One is control over the body and the mind. And the other is you, instead of coming under the control of the body and the senses, you take refuge in the Atman, in the self, in the supreme self. It may be a form of the divine, it may be a thought of the divine, it may be an action of the divine also, Leela, Prabhu's Leela. So all of these are perfect. So take refuge in that. That's what he says. How to escape from this temptation? He gives this advice to us. Atma Vashyehi, Vidhi Atma Vashyehi, Indriyaihi, with the senses under one's control, and also perching on the Atman, keeping your mind on the Atman. Then what do? Vishayancharan. You approach the sense objects, but they will not make any dent in your life. Sri Ramakrishna used to say, the snake is very poisonous. Some snakes are very poisonous. But the snake charmer, what does the snake charmer do? He takes the snake and he pulls off the Vishadanta, that means the poison tooth. He pulls off the poison tooth, then it will not hurt a person. Even if it comes and tries to bite, it will not be poisonous. So that poison has been taken away. That poison has been taken away by perching yourself on the thought of the Atman. Then what happens? Prasadam adhigacchati. A person attains to serenity, a person attains to tranquility, a person attains to fullness. Prasadam adhigacchati. Prasadam is another meaning of prasada is grace. We go to the temple and say, give prasad. Prasad means the air. It's not food, is not prasad. It is the grace of the divine. So, when I was very young, I went to one temple, and so very, very little at that time. So I went to this temple, and at the exit or entry and the exit are the same. At the exit, when I was coming out of after prayer, so they were saying, while going, please don't miss taking the prasad. So I went there, and I thought some good food would be available, some sweet or something will be available. Instead, the priest placed the footprint of Lord Vishnu in South Indian temple. You must see the footprint. It's like a crown. He placed it on the head and then gave a little bit of chandan, that is the vermilion. So I was thinking, where is prasad? Where is the real food prasad? That is indeed prasad. Prasad means whatever the grace of the divine is, prasad. Prasadam adhigacchati. One will receive that prasadam. Fourth verse of this chapter, Arjuna asks Sri Krishna, is it the fourth verse? Stitadi kim prabhasheta kimasita vrajeta kim. It's a sthita pragnasya ka bhasha samadhistasya keshava stitadi kim prabhasheta kimasita vrajeta kim. Is it the fourth verse? Anyway, I forget it now. The 54th verse. The fourth question that Sri Arjuna asks of Sri Krishna is Sthitadi kim prabhasheta kim asita vrajeta kim. Vrajeta. That's the one that is important here. Vraja. Vraja means to vartan. Vraja means vartan, that means behave. Vartana or behave. How does a person behave? That is a person of knowledge behave. This is the question that he asks. So here he gives the answer to that question here. How does he behave? Atmavashyehi. That means he goes back into his own self. He accepts the things that are coming to him, but the objects are powerless to tempt that person, because his buddhi, his intellect, has become so strong, has become so pure that they do their function, no doubt, the objects and the senses, they do their function, but they will not be able to make any dent in that person. They will not be able to create any kind of attachment to that person. This is the state of Esthita prajna. And that's how he behaves in this world. He prajeta, that means he takes everything, but then he behaves in such a manner that it does not attach him, or it does not ever cause any aversion also to that person. When he gets something, he is not overtly joyed. He's thankful to whatever he gets, no doubt. And then when he gets the misery also, he accepts it as prasad. He accepts it as the grace of the divine. Through the practice of this yoga, the mind is so trained that it does not run after the objects of the senses. When they come near to him, when they approach him and then offer themselves to him, he will accept it, no doubt. He will accept it. Somebody brings food, for example, and then he will accept it. But he will not run after those things. That is the idea that Sri Krishna is trying to give. But this verse which we just now studied, it deals with two things. One is Dhamma and Shama. Shama, Dhamma, Uparati, Titiksha, Shraddha, Samadhana. These are the 6 treasures that a spiritual aspirant has. What is it? Shama, Dhamma, Uparati, Titiksha, Shraddha, and Samadhana. What is Shama? Shama means to stop things from disturbing one. And if they persevere and then come to you, Dhamma is inner control. So physical control from the external, but if it pursues you, if it comes and tries to disturb you, then what happens? Suppose you see a beautiful, a very tasty dish that is made over there. Externally, it is very tempting for you to go and have it. So a yogi, he sees it, he admires the beauty of it, or he admires the way it is prepared, etc. And if somebody offers it to him, he will accept it. But he has so much of self-control in him that he will not ask for a second serving of it, or he will not be tempted to have more servings of that. Just this example, by this example, both Shama and Dhamma is explained over there. So Shama and Dhamma are very important in our life. So in Dhamma, control, the mental control is stress over there. So you have controlled so much so that the attachment towards those things do not even reach you. They do not even come and tempt you. It will be powerless to tempt you. That is the idea that Sri Krishna is trying to make over here. And the second adjective that Sri Krishna, so what happens when you have Shama and Dhamma? Then Raga and Dvesha Viyukta. One becomes free from this duality of Raga. Raga is attachment and Dvesha is aversion. Attachment and aversion both are the same thing in two ends, that's all. Both attachment and aversion. Too much of attachment, and then if the attached thing or person does not respect you or does not respond to you, does not reciprocate to you, what happens? Aversion comes to that person. You start hating that person. That is another thing which Sri Krishna warns us against. And the second adjective that Sri Krishna said, which we already studied, is Atma Vashyehi. You are well poised in the thought of the Atman. See, objects will cease to tempt us only if the mind begins to relish higher things. I think I told you this story last time, did I? One of our great souls. So he was in Varanasi. I don't know whether I said this to you. One of our great souls, he was in Varanasi, and there was Swami Turiyananda, direct disciple of Sri Ramakrishna, who was a Brahmagyani in his own right. So this person was extremely hard-working person, and he was almost inevitable, indispensable in the hospital. We run a hospital. At that time, it was a very small hospital, and monks themselves used to go to the streets of Varanasi, would bring the sick and all that, bring them to the center, and then they would wash them, clean them, give them a bath, and then they were the doctors. Some doctor would come, but they were the compounders in those days, and they would be cleaning the wound. They will stitch the wound and dress the wound, and also cook the food and then feed the patients. That's how, in the initial stages, that hospital was built. So he served the rogis, the patients, as if they are forms of the divine. Such was his attitude. And he was doing it to the purpose. And he was an extremely efficient person. So the head of the institution depended upon him for all the jobs that had to be done. Now, this person had a habit. As soon as his duty would be over, he would go and wash, and then he will go to the Chowkhamba. There is a town square in Varanasi, and there, as soon as it was dusk, there would be all variety programs. Every day there would be somebody singing, or there will be dancers, there will be magic, and so on. So, to entertain people in those days, 1900s, you see, there was no television. So that's what they had. So he would go, and then he would watch all of that. In the meantime, here in the temple, there would be arati going on. There would be people would be sitting and singing bhajans and meditating and all of that. Whereas this person would be gone over there. Every day he would do this. So the person who was in charge, he was very unhappy and said, "What is this? This person is going away every evening, and he is not here for the prayers. He is not here for the meditation. This is not a good thing. It's a bad example," said for others, youngsters, especially the youngsters. So they went and complained to the Swami Turiyananda, who was staying there. So Swami Turiyananda asked him, "Well, my dear, why is it that you are going away during prayer time outside and watching all those entertainments over there?" And so he very plainly said, "Look here, sir. While I am serving the patients, I feel extremely happy, no doubt. But if I try to sit down and try to sing or meditate, my mind does not go to the Lord. It becomes a drudgery for me. It becomes a difficult task. It's almost like a punishment for me to sit and meditate or to listen to the bhajans over there. Instead of that, I go and see these people, variety performances that are happening over there. I find my joy over there, and then I come back, and then I refresh myself, and then I am prepared to do the hard work for the next day." So then Swami Turiyananda said, "Well, look here. Your vocation is to sit and meditate and do all this. Yes, work you are doing, no doubt about that. But then this going to the town square and watching all the performances, all the variety, but some are good and some are not that good, that is not done." Then he just said, "Look here, Swami." He spoke to him rather, with a brash language. Look here, Swami. You have found great joy in your Atman, in yourself, in meditating upon yourself. But I have not found that joy. Till I find that joy, I am trying to find it somewhere else. But the moment I start finding that joy within myself, then I will give that up as if it were filth. I will just give everything up, and I would not bother even to go out of this place. So then Swami Turiyananda laughed, smiled and said, what you say is true indeed. Now you try to concentrate, whatever actions you are doing, you try to concentrate upon yourself as the divine, yourself as the Atman, and then perform all the actions. Now you are performing the actions, and then you think you are helping people, you think you are worshipping God outside. Now you start thinking of yourself as the divine, yourself as the Atman, and then perform all the actions for yourself. Yes, with a capital self. And then you will find that joy. Indeed, this person, this Swami, he started following the advice of that Swami. Soon, very soon, he stopped going anywhere. He would not even step out of the hospital compound. He will not go anywhere at all. So then it was understood that he had found that joy within himself, and therefore the joy outside could not tempt him anymore. So this is a very wonderful example of finding the joy within oneself. Once you have, it is very true. As long as I have not found the joy within myself, I am trying to look for the joy outside. Once I start having it within myself, why should I go and search for the joy anywhere? This is what is Atma Vashyehi. You become established in your own self. So your Atman is controlling you. The self is controlling you. Nothing else controls you. The external objects does not control you. So Sri Ramakrishna used to say in Bengali, Vishaye Virag, Ishware Anurag. Vishaye Virag. Virag means Vairagya. That means it's a kind of trying to find the worthlessness of the things that are the objects. Trying to find that worthlessness. That is Virag. And Ishware Anurag. If you can have that Anurag, if you can have that love of the divine within yourself, then this Vishayas, the objects of the senses, will not make any dent in you. Ragadvesha viyuktaistu. So what happens when you get that? Prasadam adhigacchati. Prasadam adhigacchati. You will attain to the serenity, that tranquility within yourself. Sri Shankaracharya, he translates Prasadastu prasannata. Prasannata means becoming happy within oneself is prasannata. Prasad, what is prasada? Prasada, grace is that which makes you happy within yourself. Not external happiness, but internal happiness. Once we realize this importance of this grace, then what happens? All the dukkhas will go. That's the next verse. Prasade sarva dukkhanam hanirasyopajayate prasanna chetaso hyashu buddhih paryavatishthate. What happens? Prasade sarva dukkhanam hanihi upajayate. On attaining this tranquility, this serenity, then sarva dukkhanam, all the dukkhas, all the miseries will end. Hani means to end. Prasanna chetashaha, the person who is very tranquil, prasanna chetashaha, he ashu means quickly. very quickly, buddhihi pariavatishtati, the intellect becomes very steady of the person who is very tranquil. The intellect will become totally serene and steady. That is the idea that Sri Krishna tries to give to us through this verse over here. Now, Sarva Dukkha, the term Sarva Dukkha, what are these three dukkha's? We all are aware of it. Tritapa or three dukkha's, three kinds of miseries. We suffer from these three sources of misery. Adi Bhautika, Adi Daivika, and Adhyatmika. That is why the Trishanti, Shanti, Shanti, Shanti is said. Adi Bhautika, that means that which the misery that which we receive from other people and other beings. It may be a snake bite, or it may be a mosquito bite, whatever it is, all the miseries that we find from other. Or if somebody says something, somebody tells you something, or hits you or abuses you, all of that is from other people. That is Adi Bhautika. Even this COVID also is an Adi Bhautika. It comes from an external germ. Then Adi Daivika. Adi Daivika is acts of God. Hails, storms, earthquakes, then floods and fire, etc., etc., etc. So all of this is Adi Daivika. Through this also we may receive some misery or sorrow. We may become sorrowful due to these acts of God. And then Adhyatmika. Adhyatmika is when our own mind becomes the cause of our misery. Wrong thinking, for example, and imagining things. Imagining that somebody is hurting me, or somebody is taking away that which belongs to me, etc. Psychological problems. That is called as Adhyatmika. So when grace enters our heart, when divine grace enters our heart, then all these dukkha, it will be there, but it will not create any impression upon us. That is what it is. The difference between ourselves and a sthita prajna, a person of steady wisdom, is in this, that while the external stimulations, they cause misery to us and we really become depressed and we really become unhappy, for the realized soul, the sthita prajna, those come to him or her, but it will not make any dent in that person. Not that he will not feel the pain, he will feel the pain, but that pain will not translate into misery. Pain is compulsory, but misery is optional for us. Pain is compulsory. If a thorn pricks my foot, pain is compulsory. I cannot say that I do not have pain. It is compulsory. But the attitude with which I see the pain is that which causes me either misery, or it does not cause any misery to me at all. Indifference. It will cause us indifference towards that pain. So, how to achieve to this? That is the idea that Sri Krishna is subtly indicating to us over here. See, the Atman, the self, is of the nature of Ananda. All of us are aware of it. The nature of bliss itself. Anandamayo ayam hi purusha, says the Upanishad. This purusha, this self, is of the nature of Ananda. That is the basic nature of our existence, is that of Ananda. But due to the malinata or dirt that accumulates on top of this Ananda, so to say, we start experiencing this duality of joy sometimes and unhappiness sometimes. Joys and sorrows are nothing but dualities. both upwards and the reverse of the same coin. So riding the waves, in Gold Coast you can ride on the waves. So when you are riding on the waves, you feel joy. But when you start drowning, then you feel the misery. The same ocean is the cause. But sometimes you ride high and you are in euphoria. So, but when you go back and sit on the beach under an umbrella and then you rest out there, then you feel the real peace that is that the ocean gives to you, that the ocean delivers to you. So this we are always, the Bhashyakara says here that we are always riding these waves of in this ocean of samsara due to sankalpa and vikalpa. What is sankalpa? You all are aware of. When you go to the temple, in South Indian temples, you do the sankalpa. I am from this lineage and all of that. I want to receive this kind of blessing and all that. So you make a sankalpa, resolution. You make some resolution. And then vikalpa is you reject. If it doesn't happen, you reject God and say, God was not helpful to me at all. First of all, you went to do a sankalpa. Who asked you to go and do the sankalpa? Now, if you are not given what you wanted, why do you reject it? So, sankalpa and vikalpatmakaha dukkha. So, he says, both these things, resolution and rejection, are that which are the cause of the samsara. This whole samsara, this whole coming and going is due to this. Once we drop both of these sankalpas and vikalpa, then we rest at the shores of Satchidananda and we are at a poise, we are at peace, so to say. So he says, Prasade sarva dukkhanam hanihi asya upajayate. On attaining to this tranquility, all of one's sorrows come to an end. The pain will be there, but it will not cause you any long-lasting impression, that is the sorrow. For soon does the intellect of a tranquil person becomes steady. That is the purified intellect. That is what we chant in the Gayatri mantra. Dhiyo yo naha prachodayat. Dhi means this intellect. This is the real Dhi. Dhi is the purified intellect. May this purified intellect lead me to the divine. Sri Ramakrishna gives an example of a lamp that is, in those days it was all oil lamp, and there is a lamp and there is a glass covering, very thin Belgian glass covering. And if the glass is not cleaned properly, if there is soot formation on the glass, what happens? The light of the lamp does not percolate through, does not come through to you. So you have eyes to see it, you are some vaguely seeing the light, but you are not able to see the flame of the lamp properly. So Sri Ramakrishna says, if you can clean that glass is that which separates you and the lamp over there, the flame over there. Once you can clean that lamp with the help of this detergent called the buddhi, purified intellect, the cloth must be clean. If the cloth is unclean and you try to clean the glass, it will not work. So the cloth is the buddhi, the purified, the clean intellect. With that, if you can clean the mind, so to say, or if you can behold the self, then you will be nearer to the divine. That is the idea, he says here. Prasanna chaitasho buddhya ashu buddhihi paryavatishtate. Buddhi, that buddhi paryavatishtate, pariavatishtate, paryavatishtate, remains steady. Tishta means to stay, to be steady. Pari avatishtate, it remains totally steady, like nirvata nishkampa deepa shikhavat, like the lamp which is unmoved by the wind. It is very steady. The flame is extremely steady. Like that, one's mind becomes so steady and it will not waver here and there. In the next verse, that is the 66th verse, if one has not reached to this state of prasada, of grace, one more thing which which I forgot to say is Sri Swami Vivekananda talks about it in the Bhakti Yoga, that this prasada or this grace is not dependent on any conditions. It is conditionless. This grace is conditionless. But yet, we need to be prepared for it. When the call comes, I will go. If the call doesn't come, I stay put wherever I am. So prasada, this grace, you do not know when it comes and where from it comes. So grace is not dependent on our sadhana. It is not dependent, but yet we need to do the sadhana in order to be able to be prepared to go near the Lord when He calls us, when He beckons us, or when He wants to grant us that freedom. And the second thing that Swami Vivekananda says, grace begins with grace, your own grace. That means you should have that assertion. You should have that conviction. The grace means here the blessing or the conviction that I am pure, I am strong, I am a child of the divine. This grace must be first stressed upon to ourselves. See, so Sri Ramakrishna always decried this harping upon sin, the idea of sin. See, some religions and some even among the Indian religions also, some of them, they harp to a great extent upon the idea of sin. I am a sinner, papistoham, papakarmoham, and all that, papatma, papasambhavaha. We keep on chanting all of that. All the time, I am decrying myself and saying, I am the sinner, I am doing all sorts of sinful actions, and so on and so forth. It represents humility, no doubt, but stressing this sinful nature, this aspect of the sinful nature is counterproductive, to say the least. It is not good. That's why Swami Vivekananda said, look, do not harp upon this sin. Harp upon the divine nature that you have, all the great qualities that you have, the quality of love, the quality of compassion, all of these great virtues. You harp upon those things and try to increase the quantity of those things. And then you will reach to such a state and you will feel that you are indeed very pure. So, if you think of evil, you will become evil. That's Swami Vivekananda's words. But if you think of yourself as pure, if you think of yourself as holy, you will become pure, you will become holy. So this grace must come within ourselves, towards ourselves first. And then we wait for the grace of the divine to come and shower upon us. If you take the pure Advaitic viewpoint, yes, grace of oneself is much more important, because there the grace of the divine is not counted for in the Advaita Vedanta. So prasada is very important. Then 66th verse. नास्ति बुद्धिरयुक्तस्य न चायुक्तस्य भावना न चाभावयतः शान्ति अशान्तस्य कुतः सुखम्. Ayuktasya, of the uncontrolled person. Ayukta means one who is not controlled. Buddhi nasti, that means his faith or spiritual comprehension does not exist at all. Ayuktasya, that means of the uncontrolled person, bhavana cha na asti. There is no meditation, there is no feeling also there. Abhavayataha, for the unmeditative, for the uncompassionate. Shantihi chana, there is no peace. Ashantasya, the one without peace. Kutaha sukham, wherefrom will come happiness. A man of uncontrolled senses has no spiritual comprehension. He has no capacity for meditation either. For the unmeditative, there is no peace. And where is happiness for one without peace of mind? See, this is a very great verse from the Bhagavad Gita. So here, if one has not achieved to this state of associating oneself with the divine, that is the yukta avastha. Yukta is to connect yourself. If one has not achieved to this level of connecting ourselves with the Atman, with the self, he is known as ayukta, a person who has not at all been united with the divine. So what happens to such a person? He has washed his hands of both Sukha and Shanti. He has lost both of that. Sukha is happiness and Shanti is peace. So if we really want happiness, first we should obtain Shanti, peace. That's very important. See, without aiming at Shanti, without aiming at Shanti, without trying to get Shanti, peace, we will not obtain happiness at all. See, to attain this Shanti, what do we need to do? Both our bhavanas, that means our attitudes, our feelings, etc., and the buddhi, both our bhavana and buddhi, both our attitudes and feelings towards others, towards the circumstances, and our intellect, they should be in consonance with each other. They should match each other. They should be, they should complement each other, so to say. See, Sri Ramakrishna used to say in Bengali, Bhaber gore churi nai, means in the realm of feelings, in the realm of attitudes, do not try to cheat yourself. See, we try to cheat, go to temple and cheat God also sometimes. We say to God, I will give you this, I will give you that, and so on and so forth. I will give up this, I will give up that. But after some time, we will go back to our old ways. So that's what he says. If you want to have sukha, real happiness, then you should obtain first shanti, peace within oneself. That's why this verse is talking about ashantasya kutaha sukham. There is no happiness at all for a person without peace of mind. Happiness, we think that by obtaining something, by taking something, getting something, we will become very happy. But we are not. We are not getting that because there is no shanti within ourselves. How to obtain it? Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. If we want to have that peace, what should we do? Pranipata. Pranipata means surrender. And then tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena. Engage your intellect. First of all, with purity of heart, you approach the subject or the problem that you have. And then you ask questions. Have a conversation, have a debate with that pariprashnena. And third is, once you are convinced, then you do the seva, or you follow what your mind tells, or what your inner being demands you or dictates you. This is what he says, tad vidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. Nasti buddhira yuktasya nacha yuktasya bhavana nacha bhavayata shanti ashantasya kutaha sukham. So if we sing Sri Ramakrishna, Narada, in the Narada Bhakti Sutra, I think there he says that it is trying to go to the ocean and wishing to take bath and then waiting there for the waves to subside is foolishness. The waves will always be there, but you should have that peace of mind within yourself. You should have that brave heart to go into the ocean, brave the waves, and then you come back, and then you will be having joy or happiness of having swum there in the ocean. So, nacha abhavayatah shantihi ashantasya kutah sukham. Where is happiness for one without peace of mind?